This is important. If I'm talking about Rise of the Beast, I gotta talk about Beast Wars. And I was at a toy expo recently where I managed to snag a hold of these babies. Yeah, season 2 is missing, but that means I got to get it at a discount, so it was kind of a win-win. So it's cool. These are awesome collectibles. Okay, Rise of the Beasts. What's up, guys? My name is Rock Crispy, and we are back with my review of Transformers Rise of the Beast. Rise of the Beast is directed by Steven Caple Jr., who is also known for films such as The Land and the incredibly underrated, in my opinion, Creed 2. Great movie. Check it out if you haven't already. So the premise is a guy named Noah, played by Anthony Ramos, comes across an architect intern played by Dominique Fishback and is embroiled in the battle of the Autobots led by Optimus Prime for their home Cybertron. They and the Autobots form an alliance with the much-awaited Maximals to take on the coming threat of, I don't know if I should spoil it. They literally say Unicron is coming in the trailer. So yeah, Unicron. Big spoilers. Whoop-de-doo. If I'm going to talk about this movie, I've got to talk about Beast Wars as well. Bro, I got to review Beast Wars itself at some point because I love this show. It's great. Such a classic. I played a little bit of the video games at friends' places as well, and I love those games too. So, show, games, great. And honestly, that's kind of underselling it because for me growing up, Beast Wars was part of my 3D animation trifecta, if you will. It was this show, Toy Story, and it was Reboot, if anybody remembers that. Those were my 3 big introductions to 3D animation, and it's just, Beast Wars is an irreplaceable show. And I'm going to make this part quick because I want to get on to the review. I think that in terms of live-action Transformers movies, they fall into one of 2 categories. Either surprisingly good and entertaining, or absolute garbage. And as you can guess, most of the absolute garbage movies belong to the era when Michael Bay was directing these. So we've gotten 2 Transformers movies now that are not directed by Michael Bay. The first was Bumblebee, and I thought that movie was great, had a lot of heart to it, really amazingly good time, and I think they did make the right move in rebooting the franchise with that movie because, much better clean slate to start on. And then there is this movie. Fortunately, this is the good news. It falls into the good camp. This is a good movie. It is a surprisingly entertaining movie. Unfortunately, it could have been a lot better. So I'm going to start by talking about some pros, and I'm going to mention the humans first. So Anthony Ramos, I am really glad this guy has been getting the attention that he has been getting because he's more than earned it. He plays his character Noah in this movie with a lot of charisma and a lot of relatability too. I mean, whenever this guy's struggles are taking center stage, you really do feel for the guy. You really do find yourself rooting for him. Basically, he comes from a lower middle class family. He lives with his single mother and his little brother who is dealing with I don't know if they specified what the sickness was, but he's dealing with a sickness that is threatening to kill him, and they can't afford health insurance or good doctors. So he is trying and struggling to get a job to support his family because he left the military to support his family. And people see that on the outset and they think, okay, this guy's not a team player. He's not someone who commits. We can't hire him. And they're not really willing to hear his side of the story out. So Noah on his own, good character. The architect, whose name I can't even be bothered to remember, which should tell you a bit about what I'm about to say about her. Okay, Dominique Fishback plays the character with a good deal of charm. The character herself, writing-wise, just kind of feels like she's there. I really thought that Noah's arc would have been, I see what I did there. It would have been a lot stronger if the little brother had come with him on this adventure instead of the architect, because that is more personal stakes for him. He has somebody who means a lot to him, who he's got to look out for while also helping out the Autobots and the Maximals. And he himself would feel a lot more like he actually has a place in this story, because as good a character as Noah is on his own, he is just really not the right fit for a Transformers movie. He really feels out of place. He does not feel like he belongs in this conflict with the Maximals and the Autobots, and that is really tying back to a relatively consistent problem the Transformers movies have had. And I can sum up that problem thusly. There was more than one instance in this movie where I was wondering if I'd walked into the wrong film. I get why Hasbro feels the need to make these movies so strongly centered around the humans, human characters, human struggles, human relatability, good for a human audience. Problem is, Transformers has never needed that. Beast Wars didn't need it, the original show from the 80s didn't need it, the animated movie, which is so good by the way, go check that out, didn't need it. Why would these movies need it? These are Transformers movies. We don't come to these movies to see the humans, we come to see the Transformers. Now, thankfully, Noah is a much more compelling character than, say, Sam Witwicky or Marky Mark's character from the fourth movie, who, again, I cannot be bothered to remember the name of, but he's not quite as interesting a character as Charlie from Bumblebee was either. With that character, you had a really good charisma that Haley Steinfeld brought to the role, and on top of that, the emphasis was on her relationship with Bumblebee and how they basically saved each other and pulled each other out of their darkest hours. The closest Noah gets to that is these really unjustified comparisons he gets with Optimus. I mean, they are constantly going out of their way to compare Optimus to Noah. Like, at one point, the architect character has this conversation with Noah, and she's like, oh, you're just like Optimus. You remind me so much of him. You two are exactly the same. You carry the burden of the world on your shoulders. You both feel like you have to do everything on your own. You're both trying to do the exact same thing. I mean, you're trying to get a job, and he's trying to get an entire species back home and save a whole planet. Somehow, that's the same thing. Noah just never comes across as a character who is compelling enough in his own right to share a spotlight with Optimus Prime. And more than that, he just doesn't come across as a character who fits into a Transformers movie. I'm sure he would have his own great story elsewhere, but he doesn't feel like a Transformers character. Again, Charlie from Bumblebee is such a huge part of Bumblebee's journey and vice versa. You don't really feel like Noah is all that integral to any of the journeys of the Autobots or the Maximals, and I feel like the focus on the human element really is a detractor for the movie. They will start with big battles that are just so hype and epic, and then they'll switch right back over to the much less interesting humans for no reason. And on top of that, a lot of the adventure in this movie is predicated on them finding this MacGuffin that's basically the Autobots' key home. And I've talked about other movies that feel kind of like video games. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves did such a great job capturing the experience of a Dungeons & Dragons game. John Wick 4 felt so much like a video game, and it felt like that in all the best ways possible. This movie feels like an annoying fetch quest in a video game. They have to find this key, they find out that it's been split into two parts, they go to Egypt or Cairo, I forget where, to find another part. It turns out the chest is empty, turns out that somebody moved the things, and it's just that annoying fetch question. On top of that, okay, Optimus is really interesting. I'll get to him later. They focus a lot on Optimus Primal, as they should, and he's a really interesting character too. They give nothing to the other Maximals. Cheetor gets like one line. I'm pretty sure Rhinox didn't get any lines at all. The only other Maximal besides Optimus Primal who gets like much dialogue at all is Airazor. And even then, I feel like that was mainly because she was voiced by Michaela Yeoh, and they wanted to capitalize on how big she is in the film industry right now, deservedly so, by the way. Michaela Yeoh is awesome, and she's awesome in this movie too, no exceptions there. But these are classic characters from a great show who look great on film too, who barely get anything. And as great as Optimus Prime has always been, he's been like the one consistently-ish good thing in the Transformers live-action movies as a whole. But yeah, they basically make him racist toward humans for some reason, and that's kind of a hard sell. Optimus Prime is at his best when he's playing like this warrior sage. And if you want to make him conflicted, you can do that. I feel like a lot of his better moments in any Transformers story ever have been the moments where he is conflicted on how to be a leader. And like, he gets plenty of those moments in this movie too, and they're some of the best scenes in the movie. But to bring him from that to, you brought a human here, and having this completely out of left field animosity for Noah, for any human whatsoever that he's got to work through in this character arc that barely even feels there, by the way. It's just kind of odd. It doesn't feel like good character writing for this specific character. Okay, I've talked enough about the flaws of this movie. You know what? Never mind. I haven't talked enough about them. So on top of those problems, there are a lot of conveniences, especially in the third act. The entire final battle takes place in this really gray, really boring, just dry, burnt up landscape. It's like the boring version of Mordor. They even have this technological tower that looks just like Barad-dûr, by the way. It looks exactly like Barad-dûr from Lord of the Rings. They have that built up as the villain in this movie's base. And speaking of the villain, you've got like all these conveniences being thrown the main character's way. Noah gets this like pseudo Transformers suit that he knows how to use instantly, by the way. There's this tunnel that he and Dominique's character have to go through that's just the right fit for them. They're able to crawl through it like no problem. It's such a huge convenience. And on top of that, the villain is reasonably intimidating. You know, they like most of the fights with him turn into just an ass whooping for the other characters. So I buy him as a credible threat, but he has these minions that he like sends out of his wrist, these little spider Terracon things. They look kind of scary, and he's trusting them to find this key, to find this MacGuffin, and to deal with the human characters. They bring like no stakes with them. These damn spider things, they are so lame. They do nothing, they contribute nothing, and they get taken out easily by the human characters. One point, Dominique's character takes one out with a stick. A stick is all it takes to bring this thing down. And again, these are the things that the big bad is trusting to find the MacGuffin for him. What the kind of employment registrar did you fill out with these guys, buddy? That being said, for all the conveniences in the third act of the movie, I feel like they do a pretty good job giving each character on the good side just at least one badass moment, at least one little moment to shine, and that makes me happy because they are really cool moments. And speaking of the cool moments and the good things about this movie, let me talk about them because there are quite a few of them. Optimus Prime, as usual, such a badass character. Peter Cullen nailed the vocal performance as he always does. And we do see him, you know, go through doubts, go through personal conflicts, go through struggles as a leader that the other live action movies haven't always provided, usually haven't provided actually, but it results in some really good scenes, barring the inexplicable human racism type deal. Noah, for all his many faults and not really fitting into a Transformers movie, does have a lot of good moments, is himself a really good character, and he's got a lot of good moments with his little brother. The Autobots have plenty of good moments. Mirage is a standout. He's actually voiced by Pete Davidson in this movie, and I know Pete Davidson has this tendency to either be really annoying or really funny. Thankfully, this is one of his funny roles. The movie has a lot of good moments of coming across as self-aware in how cartoonish it gets and how cheesy it gets, and a lot of the better moments with that come from Pete Davidson, and I genuinely cannot tell if a lot of his lines were written in the screenplay or if he was just ad-libbing and like commenting on how ridiculous, like he straight up has this line where he is like, that sounded really ridiculous coming out of my mouth, and like he delivers it with a kind of energy that feels so Pete Davidson, and I genuinely cannot tell if that line was ad-libbed or written by someone else. The fights in general are really fun and cool. It's always awesome seeing the Transformers in live action. It's always such a captivating visual experience, and it's a fun theatrical experience too. And it carries with it, you know, like a good deal of heart. Like this is mainly going to be a movie for the Transformers fans. If you liked Beast Wars, if you liked the 90s show and the animated movie, and if you even had moments that you liked in the Transformers live action series like I did, I may hate Revenge of the Fallen with a burning passion, but I'm a bit of an apologist for Dark of the Moon's third act, and I really will never have an experience like seeing the Transformers in live action ever again. Seeing them in that first movie was great. The first one is still my favorite live action Transformers movies when I fast forward through every bit with the humans and just get to the Autobots and the Decepticons, because that's what I come to these movies for, guys. They're Transformers movies. Get away from the humans, please. We don't need them. They're obsolete. If you've had at least one moment that you liked in those movies, I think for the most part you're gonna like what's here. The Maximals are really cool. The Autobots have plenty of great moments. Optimus Prime is a great character. Primal gets very good focus, and it gives really good setup for what's to come in the next movies. It did genuinely get me excited for the Transformers movies to come, and it's definitely a good, entertaining movie. I just thought it could have been a lot better. And with that being said, I think taking it out of the oven, I can give it a nice solid 68%. Yeah, it's, you know, it's good. It's a nice time, just nothing special, you know? The best thing I can say about this movie is that it did make me want to go back and watch Beast Wars again. Such a great show, man. I'm gonna have to drop that review sometime. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to like, share, subscribe. Come join the Crispy Kingdom. We are all royals here. I also have a gaming channel, a clip channel. You can find links down below to my Twitch as well, and to shows that I am a part of. The Global Nerds podcast, which I am a part of on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You will also find a link to a short film I was recently a part of called One Heart. Links, as always, in the description down below, along with so much other stuff. It's always fun making these. But at the end of the day, these videos are meant to be conversations. So I would love to know, what did you think of this movie? What are the Transformers movies you like? Because honestly, I'd say ranking overall, this one's probably the third best live action movie behind Bumblebee and the first Transformers experience. But yeah, personally, I had fun with it. I would love to know what you think. Feel free to rank your favorite live action Transformers movies down below. This has been Crispy, and that's it. The Crispy spoken. Take care.